Private security firm G4S is being summoned to Parliament's Justice and Correctional Services Committee to account for Thabo Bester's prison escape. The company has been managing the Mangaung Correctional Facility in the Free State, where the convicted rapist escaped. Now, MPs are expressing outrage that G4S was not present in Parliament to account. Senior reporter Silindelo Masikane joins us now. She was following that particular press briefing. Slee, G4S missing in action. I believe that their lawyers were there, so why couldn't they make their representation?
Well, G4S lawyers are coming to represent their clients in Parliament today for that portfolio committee meeting. And when the meeting actually began, Masego, we saw the chair of the committee outlining the program. And on the program, they were expecting to start with representations from G4S Security. Then they would move on to the Department of Correctional Services, and then subsequently hear then from the SAPS, or should I say the Police Ministry, in terms of their investigations. Now, a statement was dropped yesterday by G4S, essentially saying that they never received an invitation to this parliamentary committee meeting. I want to quote at the end of this statement. It says, therefore, G4S would welcome the opportunity to engage with Parliament and has written to the committee requesting that it issues a formal invitation to appear before the committee to address this matter under parliamentary privilege. Now, this letter has seemingly angered the MPs, and they believe that G4S is using delaying tactics. But according to their statement, they believe that they have contractual obligations with DCS and therefore cannot speak outside of that contract without permission from DCS, or perhaps a summons then from the portfolio committee. Let's just take a listen to what the lawyer had to say to MPs during that sitting.
G4S didn't, firstly, directly receive any invitation, but incidentally on Saturday heard from BCC, who was invited, that this meeting was to take place. But G4S didn't directly receive any invitation and wasn't aware that any presentation would be required from it. Now, G4S is very keen to assist this committee, but my mandate is to explain why precisely it's unable to do so without a summons. Now, the members and chairperson, honourable chairperson and members would be aware that Section 111 of the Correctional Services Act contains certain statutory confidentiality obligations for contractors and subcontractors that can't simply be waived by the contractor itself. It also has contractual confidentiality obligations to DCS under the agreements under the private-public partnership, and contractual confidentiality obligations to the employees concerned. Now, it's only by virtue of Section 22 of the Parliamentary Privileges and Immunities Act that a witness can be immunized from its liability for breach of contract or any other kind of liability in response to a summons. And that's why, as it's been explained as quickly as possible in the letter yesterday, and certainly without any intention of causing disrespect, that G4S has requested to be summoned so that it can make the appropriate witnesses and the appropriate documents available as quickly as possible. But it will need to have a summons in order to be released from its statutory and confidentiality and contractual confidentiality restraints.
And Slee, what did MPs have to say about the private company not pitching?
Certainly not impressed. All the committee members that actually spoke during that meeting were quite outraged at the letter, saying that they were quite angered by it. They believe that the security company is being disingenuous. They believe that they're trying to use legal processes to try and not be held accountable for this entire saga. So many of the MPs really were quite angered by the letter and were insisting that if G4S wants to be summoned, then certainly so. They were going to get the national speaker to then summon the security company, but also many of them raising the fact that, Bester's victims are the ones who should be really at the forefront of this in terms of how processes are going to unfold, saying that this man, this convicted rapist and murderer is on the loose and he is a danger to society, and the fact that the public has every right to know in terms of how investigations are going, and that it's really in the public's interest to ensure that this committee actually sits and hears this, for many, this very ludicrous story in terms of how Bester escaped from Mangaung Correctional Center. And there were some inquiries around why couldn't then the meeting continue and G4S make its representations at a later stage, because we did have the Minister of Justice, Ronald Lamula, there, as well as the Deputy Minister of the Police Ministry, who was present, as well as the Acting National Commissioner of Correctional Services, all ready and present to account for their role in the situation, but MPs believe that procedure needs to be followed and that G4S needs to be the one to make representations first, because that is where this entire saga began, at the Mangaung Correctional Center. So G4S needs to account as to exactly what their role was in this particular matter. So let's just take a listen to a few of the MPs in terms of them expressing their outrage and, of course, insisting that G4S does appear before Parliament.
G4S decides not to come to this meeting. If all these eminent gentlemen with very busy schedules were able to be here today, how dare they say that they're not attending today? And what do they have to hide? Chair, I also believe that by that letter that they've sent you, where they talk about being bound by some contractual arrangements and some protection. What about the women? What about the women, the rape survivors that were totally unaware that Bester was out? What if they'd have seen them, seen him? What would they have thought? They were never even advised of this. So, Chair, I share my colleagues' sentiments totally, a sense of outrage, and we as Parliament need to exercise our oversight efficiently. And it's regrettable that they are not here. At our request to be here, now they request to be summoned. Well, we will summons them. But we want to send a message very clearly that we are resolute and determined to get to the bottom of this.
So this sitting or meeting was postponed for today. Slee, what happens next?
Well, what happens next is that we are expecting that summons to be issued latest, perhaps by this afternoon. The committee was actually saying that they are available tomorrow as well. And if all parties can come to the committee meeting and perhaps it can be rescheduled for tomorrow, then that is the first option. But at this point, it's a waiting game to see whether or not G4S representatives would be able to make their way to Cape Town tomorrow. The ministries of the police as well as Justice and Correctional Services all saying that they were prepared to come back and account. So at this point, we just wait for the summons to be issued and for G4S to respond or actually just appear before Parliament.
All right, senior reporter Silindelo Masikane live for us in Johannesburg with that update.